Why is your school teacher keeping you poor without even knowing it? Seriously, have you ever stopped to wonder about that? Think about it for a second. What if the traditional path that your highly educated parents or your school system drilled into your head, get good grades, find a safe job, rely on a steady paycheck, what if that is actually the exact formula, keeping you secretly trapped in the middle class? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking exactly how the wealthy think about money using the revolutionary source material from Robert Kiyosaki's legendary Rich Dad Poor Dad. And as you're going to see, their mindset is wildly different from the rest of the world. So let's just jump right into this. The source material presents us with two completely different father figures. On one side, we have the highly educated poor dad. Now, this dad believed in writing an impressive resume to find a secure job. He worked incredibly hard, yet somehow he always struggled to save a few bucks. But on the other side, we have the financially self-reliant rich dad. He didn't care about a resume at all. He wanted to write strong business plans to actually create jobs. The fundamental difference here? The poor dad spent his entire life learning how to work for money, relying totally on an employer. The rich dad learned how to make money work for him. And the kicker is, our entire educational system is designed around that poor dad philosophy. And this part is absolutely crucial because it shows how the literal words coming out of our mouths dictate our financial destiny. The poor dad would frequently say, "I can't afford it." According to the source, the moment you say those words, your brain just shuts down. It lets your lazy mind entirely off the hook. But the rich dad, he strictly forbade those words. Instead, he forced a question. How can I afford it? Asking a question forces your brain to search for solutions. It creates possibilities, excitement, and drive. It's this massive shift from passive acceptance to active financial problem solving. Okay, so if we want to start solving those financial problems, we've got to toss out all that confusing traditional accounting jargon. The wealthy keep it so incredibly simple. If you want to build wealth, you really only need to know the difference between an asset and a liability. And here's the surprisingly simple rule from the text. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, whether you're working or not. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. That's literally it. If it feeds you, it's an asset. If it eats your money, it's a liability. Now notice where the wealthy actually focus their daily attention. While the middle class focuses entirely on their income statement, specifically, obsessing over their paycheck, the wealthy are obsessively focused on building their asset column. They spend their time, their energy, and their resources stacking this up. They aren't constantly begging for a bigger salary. They're looking to acquire more things that generate cash on their own. When you actually start filling up that asset column, the results are kind of magical. Think about how the money flows. The assets generate income that goes straight into your pocket. This is the holy grail, right? Passive income. This is your money working for you, around the clock, without requiring your physical labor. As long as your living expenses stay lower than the cash flow generated by these assets, you just grow richer and richer. But, we've got to contrast this right away with what the source calls the middle class trap, or the rat race. In this scenario, as income goes up, maybe you get a promotion or a nice pay raise, your expenses just magically rise to match it. A pay raise usually just means buying a larger home, getting a flashier car, or taking on more high-interest consumer debt. The income never even gets a chance to build up the asset column, it just shoots straight out the door to pay for expenses. And this is exactly why highly educated people with great salaries can still live in a state of constant financial panic. All right, so here is the massive, highly controversial aha moment. This totally challenges the most deeply ingrained dogma in our entire society, the idea that your house is your biggest investment. According to the source material, treating your primary residence as an asset is a complete myth. If you buy a bigger, flashier house, it takes money out of your pocket every single month in the form of a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. So, by the very definition we established earlier, that makes it a liability, not an asset. The source breaks down exactly why tying up all your wealth in your primary residence is actually so damaging. There are really three hidden costs here. First, the loss of time where your money could have been growing in real assets. Second, the loss of additional capital. Think about all that money you pour into a new roof or high-maintenance landscaping. That could have been invested elsewhere. But the third point, it's the most devastating. It's the loss of education. Because people pour everything they have into their house, they have no money left to invest. And because they don't invest, they never gain investment experience, which means they never become what the financial world calls a sophisticated investor. So, I know what you're thinking. If my house isn't a real asset, what on earth is? Well, let's get into the solution. Here is the actual menu of cash-flowing vehicles the wealthy acquire. They buy businesses that run completely without their physical presence. Actually, scratch that. If you have to be there every day, it's not really a business, it's just a job. They buy stocks, bonds, and income-generating real estate like rental properties. They acquire notes, or IOUs, and they build royalties from intellectual property like music, scripts, or patents. Notice the trend here. Every single one of these vehicles works 24/7 to put money into your pocket without you ever having to clock in.
Okay, so now that we know what to actually buy, how do we buy it smartly? Because a truly sophisticated investor asks a completely different question than the rest of us. They don't just ask how much an investment costs, they ask, how fast do I get my money back? They are hyper-focused on return on investment, or ROI. As the text puts it, in the world of the asset column, retrieving your initial capital quickly is vital. You want to put your money in, let it capture the asset, and then pull your initial money right back out so you can go use it again to buy your financial freedom sooner rather than waiting until you're 65.
Let's actually walk through a very concrete example directly from the text to show you how this plays out in the real world. The author found a small condo in Arizona sitting in foreclosure. The bank wanted 60 grand, but he offered 50,000 and backed it up immediately with a cashier's check. Because he had the cash ready to go, the bank took the deal. He then rented it out as a vacation property to winter snowbirds for $2,500 a month during the high season. Because of that aggressive cash flow, he recouped his entire initial $50,000 investment in just about 3 years. But really, think about what happens in year 4 of that strategy. Once that initial 50 grand is fully recouped, he still owns the condo, and it still pumps out cash every single month. But now, he technically owns that income-producing asset entirely for free. His initial capital is back in his hands, ready to go buy another asset. The source notes that this is exactly what Ray Kroc did with McDonald's. He didn't really care about selling hamburgers. He used the franchise business to acquire the real estate underneath the stores for free. Getting your money back and keeping the upside for free, that is true financial intelligence. Of course, spotting a deal like that $50,000 condo, that doesn't just happen by accident. To see what everyone else misses, you must develop these 4 pillars of financial intelligence. 1. Accounting. You have to be financially literate and actually know how to read the numbers. 2. Investing. Understanding the literal science of money making money. 3. Understanding markets, grasping supply and demand, like knowing snowbirds are definitely going to want to rent in Arizona in the winter. And 4. The law. Knowing corporate, state, and federal regulations so you can protect your wealth and pay the least amount of taxes legally possible. As we start to wrap up this explainer, we arrive at this profoundly empowering reminder from the text. You have been given 2 incredible gifts, your mind and your time. Absolutely no one forces you to remain in the rat race. With each dollar bill that enters your hand, you and only you have the power to determine your destiny. If you spend it foolishly, you're choosing to be poor. If you spend it on liabilities, like a flashier car or a house you really can't afford, you're joining the middle class. But if you invest that dollar in your mind and learn to acquire real assets, you are choosing wealth. So, the choice is entirely yours. It's a choice you make day by day, literally dollar by dollar. Ask yourself honestly right now, what are you going to choose to do with your very next dollar? Are you going to let it slip away for a fleeting liability? Or are you going to deploy it like an employee, sending it to work to build a life of true financial freedom? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you're leaving today eager to go build that asset column.